Welcome to the second episode of Conversation Under Insulation with our expert from Bureau Veritas, Andrea Di Lillo. Hi, Andrea. Welcome back.
Ciao, Prafull.
We are very keen to learn from you about RBI and CUI and what are the gaps in the RBI process within CUI and what do you see the future possibilities. So let's jump in.
So we'll start with a very nice and challenging question in terms of the risk-based inspection guidelines and some gaps that we have also met during our experience. Maybe in the previous episode, we have mentioned that there are specific asset types like the cryogenic system and asset prone to sweating corrosion that are still an element of concern. And let's say the challenging can, as you mentioned last time, also related to material properties or in insulation integrity, corrosion monitor needs. And for what I can say is that there are equipment that are operated at very low temperature, for which the insulation, as we know, it's made of PUF, the polyurethane foam, which is different, we know, from, let's call it mineral wool. And generally speaking, risk of CUI, it's almost impossible due to very low temperature. But there are two issues that may be encountered, and this is interesting in the assessment through an RBI approach. There is ice formation of PUF that may lead to an unpredicted failure. And there is also a variation of the temperature between when you have the service, for which it's negative, the temperature, and then the shutdown when it goes to the ambient temperature that may lead to the corrosion under insulation issue. Of course, this is related to the number of cycles, duration of shutdown, the quality of coating, and also how the PUF has been, let's say, installed and what is the adherence on the steel, for example.
So you mentioned that RBI process in the last episode, you said it's very effective for CUI, but there are some specific gaps and challenges like it's geometrical, like dead legs, and now also it came out that it's also how it handles the cryogenic and low temperatures, sub-zero temperatures, sweating service. Those remains the gap. But what specifically, I believe at sub-zero temperatures or below -12 or -4 degrees Celsius, RBI does not consider CUI to be a damage mechanism altogether. But in your experience, do you still see CUI in those applications? As you said, probably intermittent operations or something like that.
Yeah, I think that especially when there is intermittent operation, this is something I was mentioning these two elements because in my opinion, this is important that our inspectors or our inspection engineer will take in consideration that the operating condition can, let's say, generate a context that was not forecasted, and maybe it's not common in the traditional approach. So the variation in temperature between the service and shutdown is something that we have to definitely take in consideration.
So in those situations, what does the operator do, or what does the RBI experts like yourself suggest when there is a gap in the RBI but still needs to be addressed, inspected, like cryogenic or intermittent? Do you still recommend RBI for that, or you create a separate program for CUI on that?
Let's say this is very case by case. I'm not in the position to share a single guidance, but what we know is that since the leak location that in general now going out from the specificity of the cryogenic or let's say some that are the exceptional of normal experience, when we have a leak location that can happen randomically, and let's say visual inspection and conventional insulation removal could be effective to a certain extent. But what we recommend is always to have an integrated approach. Last episode, we said again multiple times that collaboration and integrated solution for corrosion under insulation, it is a good guidance for us, the customer, and the different partners that are together, because we need to move to implement a combined approach into the asset integrity management strategy. And for example, and I think that it's the right time now to club together the two areas. We propose the integrity operating window management by identification of the driving factor that are, again, temperature, coating age, insulation condition, expected operating temperature, that are inviting us to assigning acceptance criteria and monitoring the means and the required action. And also what we do is to advising listing high critical location on the tag level and continuous monitoring them, then updating what we have at the register based on the previous findings during the corrosion management on the annual review meetings. We offer also mobilizing experts to use the screening tools, like so even this discussion has been done multiple times also with you, with customers, on the importance to leverage long-range UT or PEC, like pulse eddy current, or the neutron back scattering, the radiography in terms of real-time, digital radiography, the infrared thermography. But in order to identify the location for further close visual inspection with the insulation removal, recalling, and I want to remark that we have a limitation, let's say, of the screening tools. And our main purpose for screening, not for sizing the defect. Mm-hmm. And also what we discuss with the client is to assess the possibility to introducing monitoring and sensors devices, because we need to identify the wet insulation before that corrosion under insulation occurs on the substrate metal. And we have also developed and improved. Now, even in the previous episode, we spoke about the coating, we spoke about policies. And what we try to do is always to either develop or improve the coating and fabric maintenance program in order to keep track of coating age, repair, as coating under insulation is a major barrier, no? And we also then assist by reviewing the risk. Even in the last episode, risk assessment had taken some of our time, because reviewing the risk as part of the MOC of the management of change review, when new sources of muster ingress could be introduced, and we mentioned already vibration on the small bore lines. You said at the beginning of the episode the cycling, temperature, we mentioned in the past episode, dead legs, and so on.
So as you said, I can see where you're going. You know, RBI process as it stands is a risk assessment process, but as you said, it's a collaborative approach, and it needs to be continuously be done rather than one time. It needs to be updated continuously from the field results and the field data. And I guess when you say IOW being introduced with process parameters, it gives me a glimpse of the next step in the evolution of RBI to incorporate the conditions and rather than assumptions with RBI, you include the live conditions into the RBI process and do that. And also to summarize, also you mentioned about screening as a big element of the managing the risk and CUI risk process, where you not only do inspection but first do an screening, and then inspection is done to quantify the damage, right? So it's a two-step process rather than one-step process. I would say, that's an enhanced process. It's a better process where rather than doing inspection for discovery, do screening for discovery. The inspection process should be for validating and quantifying the discovered defect rather than discovering the defect itself. Right. And then you mentioned about monitoring being coming in, and that's my favorite topic as well. So how do you see monitoring and sensor technologies being affecting the RBI process in general?
Prafull. This is a very interesting question that we are discussing not only, of course, in the corrosion space, but it is something that also now in the emission space, it's popping up. But looking at the asset performance management can be addressed from different angles. But staying with our focus on sensor for the conversation under insulation. So this sensor measure could be, let's say, coupled to dynamic corrosion risk assessment. Because we want to be in the position to anticipate issues that the RBI study have not detected yet. And this is very well true also for the other topics that I have mentioned. So the anticipation for things that have not detected yet are really an added value. Because, of course, then we'll start saying, but we have to install plenty of sensors in order to do that so that we have full control of everything. In reality, maybe before to implementing, let's say, large number of sensors, we need to do the work step by step and correctly. So who has followed our 2 episodes will know that there are different bricks that we have to put together in order to then build the proper wall to fight against the corrosion under insulation. So good coating and insulation maintenance, the good RBI approach, the use of relevant data in order to feed the risk-based inspection. And let me say also possibility to gradually shift from removal of insulation to an NII, so a non-intrusive inspection, for example.
So great, and you do see that inclusion of monitoring and remote monitoring technologies. Obviously, before implementing them, there's a lot of step-by-step process needs to be done. But having the monitoring technologies that affect the RBI process positively at some point. My perspective on monitoring technologies is it's different than the inspection, because inspection is more of a validation when the damage has happened or discovering the damage. I think what we are seeing in monitoring is we can monitor the parameters and parameters which lead to those corrosion. So I would say I would throw in this word leading indicator and lagging indicator. Lagging indicator, I think inspection is trying to catch the lagging indicator of the damage. I think the opportunity in front of us, including RBI and including monitoring, is to move upstream where we start to monitor and detect the leading indicators, like even moisture ingress is a leading indicator of a future corrosion and a future coating damage. So that's how I see the sensor technologies bringing to the table. And then once we have a leading indicator, few years down the line, you can actually detect the lagging indicator with inspection. So I think it will help the risk management process much better when we have both. What do you think?
I agree. Again, our connection, it is through collaboration and integrated solution approach. So monitoring definitively can significantly impact the risk-based inspection process in different way, because it will enhance, as you mentioned, the precision, and it will enhance the effectiveness. And we have to bear in mind maybe some of the added value that we can get, because we'll facilitate the data-driven decision making, will support an improved risk assessment, will also allow to have an early detection of anomalies, and definitively will bring something that all our customers want, that is to customize the inspection plan, because the behavior it's different site from any other site, and entering more and more in what it is the condition-based maintenance approach, in order to, at the end of the day, one of the main points is to fulfill the objective of cost optimization, to validate performance, to have possibility to review and analyze historical data, will also contribute to ensure, or let's say to progress in terms of compliance assurance and target, because our first priority at the end of the day remain to enhance safety, because we want to identify in a real time or near real time as much as possible the deterioration or the deteriorating condition, in order that the monitoring itself will contribute to safety enhancement, reducing the risk of, we mentioned from the beginning when we touched the awareness in the previous episode, the risk of catastrophic failures.
In general, it's about cost savings and inspection effectiveness basically, but cost is a big driver there, and compliance is another driver, and the safety is the third driver. So between these three, we have to increase the risk management process, be it RBI, be it monitoring. And to me, with this discussion, it's clear that there's a big influence of monitoring coming to RBI as we go forward.
Yeah, just to conclude on this, let's say, interesting reflection that we are doing. So incorporating the monitoring into the risk-based inspection process can really transform it from what we call a static periodic assessment in what we sometimes call more dynamic, and we said data-driven approach, because the asset management will more and more go into the data-driven approach. We know that there is a need from the customer, a need from the market, and this is where we will go. And this will be enabling also the organization to take more, we can say, proactive, so there are actions to be taken, cost-effective, as you said, but also informed decisions that ultimately will be enhancing the integrity from one side, the reliability of the asset, but with the major objective for me, number one, it's reducing risk and operational disruption. Risk, safety, improve safety, reduce risk, and operational disruptions.
Thank you. And the data-driven approach means generating new data, incorporating new experiences, and customized data in your own RBI rather than using guidelines only, right? That's important. So Andrea, which brings me to the end of this session about how do you summarize the future of RBI?
What we know is that RBI remain a recognized strong approach for which we want to keep going. But monitoring is a way of knowing what is occurring in between two inspection. So you see again, there is an integrated approach, because we are not saying the one replace the other. No, we want to make sure that this will help in between two inspection. And in one of the two episodes, we introduced also the topic for IOW, so the integrity operating windows that can help trigger corrosion issues and conduct to an ad hoc on site to verify that everything is okay. So this now can be called an advanced RBI if you want, or smart RBI, as some of my colleagues used to call it. And the issue of online monitoring to ensure that all data are collected are correct. So the system shall be able to detect that sensor is not working or delivers improper data. And this means that we enter also in an opportunity for physical to digital data assurance.
That's wonderful. I take this as a summary that the future of RBI is as actually smarter RBI with monitoring, with data-driven, with a lot of intelligence into it. And it needs to be dynamic. It needs to be more efficient, a smarter RBI. So with that, thank you, Andrea, for a lot of your good insights. And hopefully our listeners would have taken good bits from this.
Thank you very much, Prafull, from my side for inviting us in this very nice session for conversation under insulation, and congratulations also for this inspiring title. And hopefully we have contributed sharing some of our experience in order to help customers to move really to a more collaborative approach and leverage this integrated solution approach with the different partners that are sharing different level of expertise in order really to contribute. Thank you very much, Prafull, and
Thank you.
have a
Andrea.
good rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye.